For great ideas and practical tools you can start using tomorrow to grow your business and separate you from the competition, you've come to the right place. If you're into B2B marketing and sales, then welcome to the one and only B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast. With over 60 and counting total years in the trenches of businesses small and large, they have a plethora of knowledge and experience that generate you more leads, capture more clients, ring up more sales. Well, doggone it, just make you more money. How about that? Always thought-provoking, yet dubiously entertaining. Please welcome to their respective microphones across 3 time zones, your co-ringmasters, the Dave Loomis, and not the rock star, Steve Miller.
Hello, gang. Welcome once again to the auspicious.
What's it called again?
Extravagant.
Oh, extravagant.
Over the top.
Yeah.
Extremely valuable, interesting, and useful B2B marketing and sales podcast. Thank you very much.
Yeah, nice. Very
We've been doing
nice.
this for over a year now. We've had we've got a bunch of episodes out there. And thank you to everybody that's following us and listening to us and sharing with us. Sharing us with their teams and stuff like that. I am Steve Miller, better known as Kelly's dad, marketing gunslinger, and not the rock star. Joining me, I'm really professional today. Joining me is my as I've said before, and I'm going to say it again. I am Ed McMahon to his Johnny Carson, and my Johnny Carson is David Mayo Loomis, Esquire. He prefers not to be called Sir David Mayo Loomis, Esquire, but he prefers
actually just the opposite. I was going to be a lawyer and decided against it. Actually, the LSAT scores decided it for me. But I wouldn't mind being, I don't live in England, so it's hard to get that Lord title, but Lord Loomis sounds pretty good. It's alliteration Loomis and everything.
Lord Loomis.
Lord Loomis.
I like that. So, all right. Well, we might
Loomis.
We might add Loomis. That. We might add that too. So,
also known as The Voice.
This week. Oh,
don't forget that.
Share it with it. Give it to us. Give it to us.
Well, I never told you this before, but I play the piano a little bit. I just play around. And in high school, I used to do this sort of shtick where I pretended that I was like at a kind of a bar dinner type place, playing the piano in the background. And I would play these different chords. I can play chords really well, just like at random, and it sounds great.
That's impressive.
And so I do that kind of thing. And then I at the time I said I would say something like, "Welcome, Dave Loomis, to the Starlight Lounge. We hope you'll be with us this evening for this entertainment." That kind of thing.
This evening's entertainment. For this entertainment. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now this follows very closely on the heels of you saying that you went to high school for 13 years, but that was a different discussion we were having offline. So
it was an inaccurate statement.
It was an inaccurate statement. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about personal branding.
Wow. That's an important topic.
It really is. It's not about your company right now. Not on this episode. We've done 50 some odd episodes.
Right.
And almost all of them were about your company. And this one is going to be about you, the listener.
You, the listener. Now,
your own personal brand.
Now we know that personal branding, nothing new about it. Nothing new about that. It's not new. I mean, it's kind of been, especially on the internet, with the internet and stuff, you often see conversations where people are talking about how do you develop your personal brand. But let me ask you this question, because clearly what we're talking about is you, and the listener or viewer, wherever you are, that and that this is something that you need to pay attention to, and you need to be proactive about. If you want to grow, if you want to advance yourself, if you want to meet people or certain people or something like that, and like Lord Loomis says, it's not about your company. So there are some I don't know what I want to say. There's some conflicts in there, or can be some conflicts in there. So
interesting. You said you had a question.
Yeah. So let's start with this question. Okay. What do you mean by personal branding, and why is it important?
Okay. The book, just a little plug for the book called Marketing is Everything We Do. Listeners know about that, how serving others brings success in business and in life. So this is about the in life part, to some extent, the in business part, maybe a big extent. So the book is mostly about things that we do in marketing and branding as a company, but there's a chapter or two on your own personal brand, how to establish it and activate it, et cetera, and networking and some other things. But what I mean by personal brand, and I at least what I mean, is that every single person is unique. And in a world where we have so little control over so many things, it seems, on a day-to-day basis, and that can stress all of us out, including myself.
Mm-hmm.
There is something that we do have control over. We can decide who we are as a person. We can decide what clothes to wear, what words come out of our mouth, how to cut our hair, what glasses to wear. Those are visible things. We can decide who to hang out with, what friends we have. We can decide where to go, what to do. And all of that adds up to a personal brand. And it kind of works a couple ways. One is the personal brand that we can think about and be more intentional about. And the other is the perception. And that's really what we want to think about and be intentional about, is how do we want to be perceived? Because the truth is, we always say, oh, don't judge a book by a cover. Guess what? We do.
Sure we do. Sure we do.
We do. It's unavoidable. And so knowing that, you can literally get up tomorrow and decide you want to be a different person in a lot of ways, within your control.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, one of the things that gave me the idea for talking about this today was, if you know James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, which is a very popular book. His Thursday email said today, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the vote builds up, so does the evidence of your new identity. Kind of like that. And that's kind of what I mean by a personal brand.
Okay, so
what do you mean by a personal brand? Any different, or something to add, or plus it?
No, if I were to just kind of give my spin to it, I would say that a personal brand is first of all, we have a brand. We have a personal brand. If you have not proactively managed it, you still have a personal brand. And
what if you don't want to have one?
Well, you know what? That it might be that, but basically
it's not an option, is it?
I don't think it's an option because if we interact with people, they are going to develop a perception of who we are. And and to me, what the personal brand is what do people say about me when I'm not there?
There you go. That's a great way of summing it up.
That's my personal brand. But what I want to do is just like with companies, because if a company doesn't manage their brand, I guarantee you the customers, not the customers, but the public or the outside world will develop a brand for them.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
even if you decide, I'm not going to interact with people, I'm going to be a hermit inside my house. Well, then your neighbors consider you a hermit inside your house.
Hermit inside your house.
Then pretty soon they're going to be using your middle name in the news reports. And
David Mayo Loomis
was found.
Lord David
Mayo
Loomis.
I don't understand it. He was a quiet guy. He really kept to himself.
I didn't see him stockpiling explosives in his house.
No.
Or any of that stuff. But
Nope.
Yeah, well, and people will also not only will they, that's a good example to say, all right, well, he's a hermit in his house. We don't really know very much about him, but he sure doesn't want to talk to anybody. So there you go.
His personal brand.
You got that going for you. And we only see him at night, sometimes he walks his dog, but he never says anything to anybody when he walks by him, or anything like that. See, all of those things are going to develop a perception that people have about you. And and in our world today, and especially with the internet, it really makes a lot of sense to try to proactively manage your brand of what do you want people to say about you? What do you want people to think about you? Even if you don't care, even if you don't care, I think, and I think you probably agree with me, I think you should still make that effort.
100%.
Because you never know when all of a sudden you will care.
Yeah. Right. Now, there's a misperception out there that having a personal brand, like thinking about it and being intentional about it and changing some things or doing, putting yourself out there, all those things, that's actually not authentic, that it's like kind of phony, but it's actually not true. It's like, I think when you and I are probably talking about a personal brand, we're talking about, well, find out what's unique about yourself and leverage that. I mean, each one of us, none of us have the exact same path in our life or our career or anything, and we're all individuals. There's some great things about everybody. What are those great things? And then, if there's a little bit of aspiration in terms of where you want to go or what you want to be, you can sprinkle some of that in there, not too much so that it seems like you're fake. That's not what we're suggesting. We're suggesting, as my daughters would say, you be you.
Yes. Reality.
Yeah.
Transparency, reality, authenticity, all that stuff. How would you? Well, and you made the comment, that our uniqueness, we could build on our uniqueness, and I would add to that if we want to build our personal brand to be beneficial to us, then what we're going to look for is combination, some type of big combination of our uniqueness, our strengths, and offset in some way to offset our weaknesses.
Sure.
So that we're playing the weaknesses down and building up the strengths and the uniqueness of it. Because strengths and uniqueness can be two different things. Might be the same thing, might be two different things. How would you start? Okay. Number one, what is the downside of building a personal brand if you are working for a company?
I would say, in reality, to me, I don't think there is a downside. I think there might be a perceived downside on a person's point of view, thinking that will gain them more attention, and from maybe their peers who oh, who's this hot shot, or who's he trying to be, or whatever. And but I don't think that should matter as long as you're keeping it authentic.
Now, I have recently seen a number of conversations online about personal branding, and one of the downsides that is pretty common in these conversations is that when you start to develop this personal brand of yours, that sometimes, I don't necessarily say oftentimes, but sometimes the boss starts to think you're looking for another job.
Yeah, that's true too. You all the LinkedIn stuff, and if you update your profile and you put in all the, they say in LinkedIn that you should really put almost like a job description in your profile, almost like a resume. That's like the new advice for LinkedIn, just so that you get kind of noticed and your network grows around what you do, because there's so much AI behind it now. But a boss could definitely look at that and say, oh yeah, that guy's looking for a new job. Yeah, it's downside. I would say the advantages far outweigh that.
I agree.
Risk.
I agree 100%. And I would also say that if a boss sees that as a negative, it's a bad boss.
Yeah, go work somewhere else.
Yeah,
get a new boss.
Go work somewhere. Go work somewhere.
You were going to ask where to start. I do have.
Yeah, where do you start? Where do you start?
So,
if somebody just all of a sudden came to us online and they said, "Hey, I listened to this thing, and help me. Just give me some kind of idea of how do I start doing this."
Yeah. So I have 4 A's, and the first A is where to start. So the 4 A's are assessment, then aspiration, then articulation, which is describing it and so forth, and then activation. So assessment. I've got a little exercise, which is kind of fun, which can be done in a very simple way, or, however complicated or involved you want it to be. But you've heard of sort of 360 reviews. That would be a corporate thing that you do if you're in a corporation and you've got to do, some exercise every year or with people, to assess yourself with your peers and your boss, and also people below you that work for you, all the way around. That's where the 360 comes from. So I had this idea to, not having the 360 tools, to do a very simple 360 thing yourself via email. It's just a very simple thing where you send a note to a bunch of people you work for that are above and below you, and your family and a bunch of friends. So you decide how many but do this, and you just ask them to answer 2 questions. What do you think I'm best at? And what's one word that you think of to describe me? A positive one. I mean, you don't have to say a positive one, but I think the thief is not, I'm not looking for that. Unless that's your personal brand and you really want to,
you want to be a thief.
Yeah. So actually in the order is, what's one word to describe you? And then what do you think I'm best at? And when all that comes in, you can organize it. And then you can add in, you can look at the things that people said about you, and then add a few things. Those are the aspirations. What do you wish people would say about you a couple years from now, or something like that? Or what do you wish people would say that you're best at? If you really want that and think that you're going to, put in the time to attain it. And then there's a third category, which is you can do yourself, which is, who do you think your most important audiences are going to be for your personal brand? Who are the perceivers that are out there? And when you do that, then you've got a long list of words and so forth, and you go through and you just pick 3 of each. Three words that describe you. Maybe it's 2 that are current and 1 aspirational, and two things that you're best at, and maybe one of those is aspirational. Maybe they're all what you already do. And then who are your most important audiences? And then you can actually make, and I have this in my book, can make a statement out of a brand, a personal brand statement, out of that. And it's kind of cool, but it's a great place to start.
It is. I would go back to the first part of the assessment, and I have a very good friend who is a really remarkable guy, Art Turok. He's been a professional speaker, a corporate consultant for a long time, but Art marches to the beat of a different drummer. And he one of the things that he has done for years is periodically I will get a message from him, and he will say, and it will have questions like that you said, like if you send out to people, and he wants you to be brutally honest with him.
Interesting.
He is the only person. Without question. You want to hear. You say, "Oh, I want to hear." My foibles and my downsides and stuff like. I want to hear this stuff, and I don't particularly want to hear that stuff. Okay, I don't want to.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, come on.
But Art does want to hear that stuff.
That's
I've never
funny.
met anybody quite like him, and he's really remarkable in so many different ways. But you see, so he did that for me. I also wanted to know, like, okay, take a really powerful aptitude test. I think the one that I did, and I had my daughter Kelly do it, was, I think it's called Johnson O'Connor. It's either Johnson Connor,
something like that. I've heard of that.
I think it's Johnson
or something
O'Connor.
like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you physically go to their facilities to go through this testing.
Yeah.
And then they give you this really detailed report about your strengths, your weaknesses, and it's really great for young people because it shows aptitudes. Now, and an aptitude is, so, like, for example, one of the tests is what they call the small, I think it's the small tweezer dexterity test or something like that. Okay. And you're doing stuff with tiny, stuff. So and I asked them, I said, why is that important? They said, well, because if you are really good with this, then you have an aptitude to be a surgeon.
Oh, that's fascinating. When my daughter Emily was growing up, she had definitely some ADD and also some kind of language issues very early on, in terms of being able to vocalize things. And we took her to the Cleveland Clinic, and they did this battery of tests, and she did have ADD. So it was diagnosed, which a lot of it isn't. But one of the tests was visual recognition. And there's there are pages in the book that are like 6 of the same exact image on every page, except one of the images has one tiny little thing different than the others.
Mm-hmm.
And you're supposed to identify it correctly on each page and go as fast as you can.
Right.
And get the most. The person who had been doing this for umpty-ump years had never seen a score as high as Emily's. Ever.
Yeah.
This is a girl who literally, she walks across a field. Every time she walks across a field, she finds a four-leaf clover. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, she literally can just see these things.
And like those, when you see those diagrams, exploded diagrams of like the top view of something, a side view.
Oh, can you recognize?
View,
yeah.
Right? Okay. And you're supposed to be able to describe what it looks like in 3D, in 3D. And that's spatial
relations,
recognition.
Mm-hmm.
I was really high on that. That's an
You were
aptitude.
high?
Yeah, I was very high. And
wow,
and it
Steve,
really helped me.
You are from the West Coast.
Yeah. And and so the thing is that these things, it's not that they're finding out what you're good at, bad at, or anything. It's what your aptitude is, what your strength, what your strengths are.
Yeah.
And they're saying, look, and they also contend, and I agree with this, is that most of the time we kind of go in the direction of things that we are just good at.
Naturally without really thinking or knowing about it. Yeah.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, well, anyway, so I was going to say is, see, you take that and you put that together with what you're getting from the assessments from people.
Yes.
Okay. And now you start to get a really strong picture of you.
Right. And some other things that are maybe not as involved is that you could go to, buy the book Strength Finders. And in Strength Finders, there's a code, and that'll allow you to take their test online to at least get your top 5 of your strengths, which is really interesting. There's also all the Myers-Briggs things, DISC, or those. There's a website.
The DISC.
DISC is great.
Yeah.
There's a great website called personalityhackers.com. If
Cool.
you go to that, it's a couple that live up in Canada somewhere, and they're just specialists on this. And you can take this test. It takes like 5 minutes, and the results are fascinating because it's Myers-Briggs based, but it gives you like a personality type, and then it tells you how to leverage, like really good information about how to leverage that and take advantage of that, whatever that is, and also some things to look out for, if you're this kind of person. So, all this stuff is, our recommendation. I know mine, I think you would agree, just make yourself into like a lifelong learner about this stuff, for yourself. Just do it all the
well, and then when you find
regularly.
things about yourself, there's a decision needs to be made. Because sometimes we find things about ourselves that we go, I'm not sure that that's something I really want to make a big deal out of. So, like, for example, with me, and for most people, this is very shocking, who know me. I am a full-blown introvert. Who happens to be able to, one of my other superpowers, and I want to, and so I try to use my being an introvert as a superpower, but I also have the superpower of being able to do this, and of being able to look at a camera or to stand on a stage, and talk to people in an audience. All right.
Right.
But if you take me to a party with a whole bunch of people, I will more likely end up in the corner by myself.
Which can be advantageous if it's a singles event at a church.
Yes, that's exactly right. I mean, I had to really force myself to go talk to Kay at the church, But it was sort of like, okay, I'm here to meet people. That's why I'm here. So, and I'm able to push myself. That's another one of my superpowers. I'm able to push myself to go do things that scares a lot of people.
Gotcha.
But being scared does not stop me.
So I think people underestimate, this is like shifting gears slightly, but don't you think people underestimate the impact that things that they wear and things that they say and do has on their personal brand?
Yes.
Like I don't think that there's enough self-awareness out there sometimes. I still get on Zoom meetings and I just can't even believe what's in some people's backgrounds. I can't believe what people wear sometimes.
Right.
And unless they're doing it on purpose. I mean, you want to wear a black concert t-shirt to an interview. You want to have laundry hanging over an open closet door behind you in an interview. You want to, unless you're making those choices consciously, then you're just not self-aware enough.
Well, and also it's not self-aware. You are just simply not aware of the messages that you're sending. And that is kind of what we're talking about here with the personal branding, is that you want to be, and I say deliberate, but I maybe the better word is you want to be conscious of the messages that you are sending to people. And maybe conscious and purposeful, that, and to remember the phrase, everything walks the talk. Right. Everything walks the talk. So that if you are on a Zoom meeting, and like you say, and if you've got laundry hanging off in the back and all this sort of stuff, well, everything walks the talk, because that is sending a message to every single person looking at you.
Right. Like, oh, you're trying to get a job that's, about detail, and whoever's on the line says, well, this person isn't really detail oriented because they're not taking care of the details.
Yeah. Or you want to get a job in sales, which means that you need to go out and see people, and you don't even care that you got laundry hanging in the back of your.
Yeah.
No, you are not. You are not going to represent us.
There's another kind of, this is morbid, but if you died tomorrow, what would you want people to say about you?
Yeah, what kind of legacy do you want to leave?
And not just what they would write, obituaries are sort of descriptive. But, when people get together and then they're sort of yucking it up about the life of Dave, or the life of Steve, or the life of Justin, who's listening, what do you want them to say? And if it's not exactly who you are right now, you can change that. Yeah.
I will put, let me give you an example of a gentleman that he and his wife became really good friends of ours shortly after we got married. And we almost asked them to be Kelly's godparents, but we didn't. And the reason why we didn't was because they were 20 years older than us, and we wanted.
Okay. Right. That makes sense. Right.
But he was one of the most well-known people in Seattle. His name was Phil Smart. He owned several Mercedes-Benz dealerships. Very successful, very prominent citizen. But and when he passed away a few years ago at the celebration that we had, nobody talked about Mercedes-Benz. What you heard from everybody was, I can't believe he went to Seattle Children's Hospital every Wednesday night for 35 years. I can't believe that every holiday season he was the Santa for all those kids at the hospitals. And that was his primary thing, okay? But he was so generous and so supportive of things like that.
Right. So that's inner drive. Like, nobody forced him to do that. That was his own inner drive that motivated him to do that.
And that was what we talked about. And it was one of those things like, man, what does it take to be that person? Mm-hmm. And yes, obviously he was a very successful businessman, and he was not a pile driver at work either. I used to go hang out at his dealership, because we'd go out to dinner or something like that, and I'd be talking to his staffers, and they just loved this guy.
Yeah, he must have been a great manager too. He
was tremendous, and his wife too. I mean, his wife was right there with them all the way. So you see, and that's kind of what you're talking about when you say, and when I say legacy, it's sort of like, okay, what will people remember you by? Not so much what we want them to remember us by, but what will they remember you by? And it will be the important stuff.
Yeah, and that's part of your personal brand.
Exactly right. And so it could be come down to something as simple as I'm wearing orange. My books are orange.
Yeah.
Everything is orange, but we connect the word orange to the word uncopyable, and then we translate that in, for our customers, but it's also my personal brand. I walk the talk.
Right. Steve Jobs, for whatever reason, he claimed that it was easier for him to wear those black, black all the time or whatever. It ended up being his personal brand, because when you see something enough, you have friends that, who it's like they have almost a uniform, right? My father-in-law always used to wear khakis and light blue, Brooks Brothers button-down shirt. Like literally that was every time you saw him, that's what he was wearing. It was predictable until he got married. And then his new wife got him a new wardrobe.
And that's part of it. Is it if we decide to have a certain type of brand, then again, if we don't walk, if we walk the talk, then I think predictable becomes part of that conversation that people would have about us. Is that they know they say, if you're with Steve, Steve will always have an orange shirt on.
Right. Remember, my favorite, which I've said many times, my favorite definition of a brand is a promise of an experience.
Yes.
That goes for you too. What is the promise that you're making to everybody else about the experience that they'll have interacting with you?
Right. And it could be something it could be something as simple and powerful as, are you reliable?
Sure. Absolutely. Or, hey, you want to, I've got a list of words that I have on my mirror in my closet that I look at every morning to remind me of keywords that I want to be this person. And I've got them right here. I'm looking right down at them.
Yeah.
And that's just part of my personal brand. Some people are just hilarious. That's part of their personal brand, is they're just funny.
Yeah.
They make light of a lot of things, and they're great to have around, and everybody needs somebody like that, in their life. Maybe you're that person, or maybe you're a serious person, and maybe so
and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Walk your talk. And
you be you.
As you also correctly pointed out with I love the alliteration of the A's. The one is aspirational. That do you want to be something? Like, one of the things that I wanted to be was I wanted to have that kind of what's the word? Panache? I don't know if it's panache. Or respect. Okay, that might be a better word. I wanted people to respect me just by hearing something about me, right? And one of the first things that people are going to say about me is, Steve has published 8 books.
There you go.
He's had 2 bestsellers.
That's one thing. That's
part of it. Okay, and those things. The aspiration was, I sort of felt like writing a book was a huge deal. Was a huge deal, and that being a published author carries this coolness about it that I wanted, and so I did it. I went out and I did it.
Yeah, and there's things you can do that. You the listeners, people.
That was an aspiration, big time.
There's things on there's things on your list of things that you want to do, and just sort of just do it type thing. And then you describe it and you activate it. And there's all sorts of ways to activate your personal brand now. So many more than we used to have, because we have, we have LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, now TikTok, everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just signed up for a new one the other day called Mastodon.
Oh yeah. I've seen Mastodon.
Just played around with it just to see, what it's like.
Some people are looking at that just in case Twitter disappears.
Who knows?
So
who knows?
If you're not familiar with Mastodon,
maybe we can do an episode on networking next, which is an extension of, sort of like, once you get your personal brand, or you sort of establish a voice that you want, what can you do to amplify it? Ooh, that's another A.
There you go. Activate, amplify.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So let's close this out by you going back over your 5 A's.
Okay, and there's 5 now. Okay, so first assessment. Okay, so figure out who you are now in your own opinion and others' opinion, and be real.
Honest, real
Yep.
assessment.
Yep. Then there's aspirational. There's aspiration, and that's within reason. What can you do, or what do you want to do to be perceived a little bit differently? So that's your what do people want to say about, what do you want people to say when you die? What will they say is, the assessment, what you are now, but you can change that to some extent. And so figure that out, think about that, then articulate, which is write it out, write your brand statement. And whatever you need to write, lots of words to describe you, or do these other things, pull out some words from whatever you did, Myers-Briggs or what have you, but articulate it so you know it, and give yourself reminders about it, and then activate it. In other words, put it into motion. And once that's sort of going, then we got our 5th one, which is amplify.
Amplify.
Yeah.
Amplify what's working. And so I think it's a great recipe, if for lack of a better word, of personal branding success.
Yeah.
So
love it.
Thank you.
All right.
We are going to talk about networking next time.
Yes. Yeah. Let's do it. All right, folks, peeps. You have been listening to
Peeps.
the B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast with Steve Miller, Not a Rockstar, and Kelly's dad, and all sorts of other things.
No.
Nope, can't talk about those things.
No, don't.
And
you hurt my brand.
A guy with it. He has an incredible personal brand, and also me, Dave Loomis, and the Dave Loomis, apparently.
That's right.
And we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us and listening. Work on your personal brand. You have homework, folks. You have homework. Do it. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the one and only B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast, the source for B2B marketing and sales insight. If you enjoyed the podcast, please be sure to subscribe and leave these old guys a 5-star rating. Check the show notes for any links and contact information. You can always contact us by going to b2bmarketingsalespodcast.com. Thank you, and keep on marketing, keep on selling.